And we had tried earlier, a couple days earlier, at the start of the camp, Mizzy Lake, and hadn't had any success. We had success the year prior there. And so we got up early one morning and to go to Spruce Bog, specifically for spruce grouse. So we were pretty excited about that. Decently confident in our chances, as confident as you can get with spruce grouse because they're pretty elusive. But so we went the back way. Started at the back of the trail and hiked in, and we were checking all the trees and looking for spruce grouse. And we struck out. We didn't find any, so we walked back again, and still couldn't find any. And so we were walking back almost at the parking lot. And for anyone who's been to Spruce Bog, there's sort of a wooden bridge where people put bird seed, and then past that, there's a gravel path. And someone suddenly yelled grouse, and someone had flushed a grouse from right beside the path. So we all ran back, and someone got on it way back in the woods and could confirm it was a spruce. So Giz decided to be the sacrificial lamb and tried to flush it a little closer to us. And it eventually ended up creeping onto the path. And it was sort of didn't care that any of us were there, the big group of 14 of us, and just went to eating grit at the side of the trail. And so it was an amazing experience for all of us. I'm not a great photographer, but I was lucky enough to get this pretty good shot, the female spruce grouse, and a bunch of people all got pretty good photographs of it, and everyone was just amazed by how close it was. Yet the most amazing part to me was that it had been flushed from about a foot off the path, and I believe the reason it had been flushed was because someone had dropped their water bottle. So it was just pure luck that we had gotten on it. And so that sort of completed the cycle of boreal birds for us for that trip. So that was a great experience. Now, the wildlife research station where a lot of the camp is spent staying, so we stay out of the WRS, you call it, for most of the camp, has a lot of, as its name suggests, has a lot of different researchers. So turtle researchers, small mammal, and etc. A bunch of different researchers. And the past couple of years, we've been lucky enough to have a small mammal researcher take us out on the trap line. So we went this year and we were getting the usuals: redback bull, deer mice, some chipmunks. Then we came across this rodent right here, which is a woodland jumping mouse. So there's two species in Ontario: woodland jumping mouse and meadow jumping mouse. And if you look here, you can see it has very large feet and large legs and a very long tail. And so to me, it kind of reminds me of like a marsupial, like a kangaroo. And that's, as its name suggests, jumping mouse. That is kind of what it does. So it does something called saltation, which is a certain type of movement where it bounds repeatedly instead of running like most mice do. It bounds like a kangaroo. And so I got this video here that I'm going to show everyone, and I'll slow it down to 0.5 speed here for everyone to see. So there we go. Sorry about that. So you can see it run along here. And as soon as it was released, it jumped out of the researcher's hand. And the way they trap them is, so they have used Sherman metal traps, and they dump them out into a Ziploc bag, unless it's a weasel, which can rip through it, a Ziploc bag pretty quickly. So there's been a couple bad stories about that. So got to be careful of that. But so that was just one example of the different experiences you get being at the WRS with all those researchers. Now, fall migration is obviously a big part of every birder's year. And this is a warbler in the understory. Anyone have any guesses? You put it in chat what you think it is.
There's few of us here, so you're welcome to just say if you know
All
what it
right.
is.
Well, it's a Canada warbler, and you can sort of tell by the black necklace, yellow throat, then yellow underparts leading into a dark undertail. But this was not a very good picture taken, but sort of a good ID challenge. But anyways, so fall migration is something that's a big part of every birder's fall. And for us, this camp this year was moved into early August. And last year was in July. This year is in early August. So and it was kind of, we were wondering what sort of fall migration we were going to get. And we arrived and it had fully commenced, which was early. And as Jeff said, I think it had been the earliest he'd seen in sort of 10 years or something in Algonquin. We were really lucky about that. And it's been, fall migration's been pushed back sort of due to a number of factors, like temperatures increasing, so birds don't have to feel the need to migrate as soon, and failed nesting due to different conditions, so they have to re-nest and stuff like that. But we were really lucky to get sort of full swing of the start of fall migration, and so we were getting warbler pockets with 12, 13 species at a time, which was just incredible. And for some people, it was their first good fall migration. So that was a great experience for all of us. Now, insects, a lot of learning is done at the Young Birders Camp, and Jeff being an entomologist and other leaders knowing insects well, we learn a lot about insects among other groups. And so these are some pictures of some of the insects we saw this year at camp. So on the left right here, you have a bee fly. Not sure which species, but Jeff could probably tell you. In the middle one, we have a hover fly, a syrphid, and on the right, there's a mimic. Now, some of you might have thought that wasn't a fly. It looks rather wasp-like, but it indeed is. And these mimics get pretty crazy. Like some of them will hold, since wasps have long antennae, but flies don't. Some of them, flies, the mimics, will hold their front legs above their head to make it appear as if they have antennae of wasps. So they get that serious about it. And these all three of these are obviously very cool insects. We were able to catch a bunch of different mimics near the WRS, but you do have to be a little bit careful. We had a couple close calls when you're pulling out of the net to make sure it is a mimic and not a wasp or a bee. So we did have a couple close calls there. So that was very interesting.
That bee fly is called yellow bee fly. Easy name.
Yellow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Lepidophora lutea.
Thank you. Now, one of my favorite groups, odinates or odonata, which means toothed ones actually, but that comprises of dragonflies and damselflies, and dragonflies are sort of the more popular of the two, even though damselflies are very cool. So here are a couple of stories about a couple cool dragonflies we saw this year at camp. So to the left, you're seeing an ocellated darner, and this is an uncommon species in Algonquin. It has a very a more common, very similar looking dragonfly called a fawn darner. And if you see on the base of the wings, these wings are clear, but a fawn darner would have rust on the base of the wings. And then on the thorax, an ocellated darner has smaller and less pronounced dots than a fawn darner would have. So those are two good field marks for it. But anyways, we were near Lake Travers at a river, and we'd been looking at a rare orchid, and we were coming back and searching the side of the river for dragonflies, and me and a couple others were taking up the back of the group because we had seen a couple cool things, and we were lagging behind, so we had to get going. And all of us saw this interesting looking dragonfly zip over our heads quickly, and we are like, "Oh, what is that?" And I think Desmond made a joke like, "Oh, I'll give you $5 if you catch that one," or something like that. And so we continued, and this dragonfly reappeared, and I took a swing at it and was lucky enough to catch it. and I went in my net and I'm like, pull it out. Holy crap, it's an ocellated darner. So that was great. We took it back to the group and everyone got to see it. It was the first one I'd ever actually seen. So it was pretty exciting for all of us. And then the dragonfly on the right you see here is a female zebra clubtail. And so another really cool looking species. And we had seen one of them earlier near the airfield at sort of a waterfall and near the airfield, popular swimming spot in the summer. And but our goal was to catch one of them on the trip, and we hadn't caught one of them yet. And nearing the end of the trip, after Lake Trevere, we were looking for turtles at this on this trail, and a couple of us decided to go off down this creek, and it was really heavily wooded, so it was hard to get down. So one of us got down, I believe it was Desmond, to the corner, and he shouts, "Oh, male zebra clubtail!" And then a couple minutes later, he shouts, "There's a female too." And so I'm trying to get down this stream, but there's so many trees that I'm battling these trees and I'm not able to get down. And I'm working my way down when he shouts, "Oh, I caught one." And then we eventually end up going back up, and sure enough, he's got a beautiful female zebra clubtail in his net. So that was and then everyone got to see that one as well. So two very beautiful dragonfly species. Now, a big part of every year, young birder camp year is the camping trip. So obviously Algonquin is a very popular camping spot, and we go the year before 2023 we went to Opeongo, and this year we went to the east side, so Lake Trevere, for those of you familiar, and most people when they hear it's going to be storming and raining would be like, "Oh no." But for us birders, it was great news because it meant that it could bring in some very unusual vagrants that would be pushed by the storm onto the lake. And Lake Trevere is a good place for that as well. So we prepared for that and we're super excited about that. And the rain did arrive. It arrived in spots. It didn't come like it was projected to, but we still got a lot of rain. And so the evening before, we had a group of 5 different species of swallow, bank, northern roughwing, cliff, barn, and tree. And the next day we had a bunch of different good birds. We had a good group of shorebirds. We had white rump sandpiper, semi-palmated, least, and a whimbrel actually was seen twice as well, which is obviously great sighting. But for Algonquin too, all of these are uncommon to rare birds. So that was a very exciting part of the trip, and just another part of the camping trip. It really brings the group together, and being out there with a bunch of like-minded naturalists on a camping trip is just sort of a once-in-a-lifetime experience for all of us young birders. So that's just always an amazing part of the trip. And you can see here sort of a couple pictures of the weather that was rolling in on the lake. Now, one of the last stops on Lake Trevere, on the camping trip after Lake Trevere, we stopped at Barron Canyon. So some of you maybe have been there before, and it's quite an amazing place to be. And as you can see from this picture, it's pretty extensive and really wide canyon. But we had a good raptor activity when we were there. So highlights have some written down here include sharp-shinned hawk, American goshawk, red-tailed hawk. Peregrine falcon actually breeds there. It's one of the only spots in the park. And then we also had a yellow-bellied flycatcher, which it's obviously a good species, and that brought our species count up to, I believe, 135 for the trip and around 130 in the park, which was, I think, 20 species over the previous total or something like that. It was the highest total ever. So we had a really good year in terms of species diversity. And so this sort of capped off our trip. And that was a great last place to end. So thank you for listening to my stories about the trip.
That's awesome, Ben. Fantastic.
Thanks for sharing. I really enjoyed. I'm glad I stayed.
The that swallow experience, for those people who don't know much about Algonquin Park, swallows in Algonquin Park used to all breed there. We had purple martins never did, but well, I shouldn't say that. There's records of purple martin on one spot in the park breeding, but all the swallows bred every year, and with the decline of swallows, they've totally tanked in the park. And bank swallow, rough-winged swallow, cliff swallow are almost never seen in the park anymore. And this was the first time we'd had 5 species of swallows in a day in 30 years in the park.
Wow.
So it's very exciting.
Wow. I was going to ask about the Barron Canyon. And either one of you can answer this, but do you have, like, is that a hike? Is that a trail? That's a hike in, isn't it? From
Yeah,
somewhere?
it's a short hike in. It's not too difficult.
Oh,
So,
because I
yeah.
thought it was a 5 or 6 kilometer hike.
2.
No, I've never been there.
Yeah, just 2 kilometers. So it's steep, but getting up
Yeah.
to the canyon. But other than that, it's a very easy walk.
I'd like to go there.
Yeah, it's really fun if you do it, Angie. One nice thing to do, we didn't do with the camp, but if you're on your own, is to walk the trail one day, rent a canoe or take your own canoe and paddle in the other day and see it from top and bottom. It's quite fun.
That'd be fun.
And we didn't do that as much as it would be fantastic to do. We get a bunch of canoes that we rent, and they're delivered to Lake Travers, and we can't move them somewhere else. We just don't have the vehicle capacity to move them. So that's why we can only sort of do one site with the canoes.
Yeah, you're not going to portage, 20K. Would be a no. So while Ben was just kind of wrapping up there, Marcus signed in.
Hey, Marcus.
Hey, Marcus.
So this is here. So maybe we will get Ben to stop sharing his screen. Yeah.
Are you ready to go, Marcus?
I am. How's the audio? Is it a bit better?
The audio is good. Yeah, it's working well.
Okay, perfect.
Okay. Well, welcome. We're glad you made it.
Yes, thanks.
Did you have success today? Did you see the eider?
We did, yes.
Fantastic.
And we got some great views of it as well.
Oh, really? Oh, we did not get great views of it. That's good. No great gray owl?
No.
But
yeah, it was great. I was there with Giz and Max and Barry, and it was swimming along the shore, like right along the shore by someone's house.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Cool.
It was quite spectacular.
That's awesome. So for everybody that is watching this or will be watching, this is Marcus. Marcus is one of the young birders that was also at the camp twice. This was his second time, and yeah, he'll give us a little bit of his sort of take on the camp and tell us a bit more about it, and then I'll try to fill in any gaps as well and give my perspective.
Perfect. So I'm ready to go?
Mm-hmm.
You're ready to go.
All right. Let me know when you can see my screen.
It's coming. It's just black though. Nothing yet. There it is.
Could you see that? Okay. All right. It's all good?
It's all good.
Okay, perfect. So this summer I attended the Young Birders Camp in Algonquin Provincial Park, and I kind of made a collage of some photos and some of to share my favorite moments with you. So let's get started. here we are in the old airfield with some of the group. And what I liked most about this camp was we would start at the break of dawn, and we bird almost all the way up until dusk. So we had so much time to go birding as a group together, and that's definitely one of the reasons why we saw so many species as we did. In the bottom of the slide here, the bottom picture, I photographed some of our group, and we're birding. I think it's still the old airfield. And the old airfield is probably one of my favorite spots that we regularly visited during our camp, and we saw several exciting species like Baltimore oriole and eastern towhee in the park there. And then here we are on the top right. The top right photo is there's Jeff on the far right, and then there's Alex Skevington and Quinton, and those are some of the park naturalists we met up, and they were able to share some of their knowledge with us as a group. Are the slides working well? You can see where I'm changing it?
Yeah, it's great, Marcus.
Yeah,
Okay,
they
perfect.
look good.
And throughout the camp is obviously a bird-oriented camp, and we saw some really exciting species. So in the middle there, we have a common raven, which was there was a pair along, I believe it was the Mizzy Lake Trail, and here we had a pair of common ravens, and they were very friendly toward our group. We would throw them some like berries and whatnot, and they would like kind of like dance around us, and they were very photogenic. So they were awesome to see. And on the top left is a blackback woodpecker. We had in our the wildlife station that we stayed at for several days. On the bottom left is a group of Baltimore orioles that we spotted in the old airfield. I believe that was a pretty significant park record to find Baltimore oriole in the fall there, and also that number of Baltimore orioles. And in the top right is a fairly young eastern towhee, and that was also a fairly significant record within the park. And it must have bred somewhere nearby and gone to the old airfield. And one of the specialties of Algonquin Park that we encountered was the spruce grouse, and we saw one of these. I believe it's a female spruce grouse at the spruce boardwalk, and here it put on a show along the path for us to photograph and see up close, which is very very awesome. Here we lucked out with a lot of mammals, and on our way into the park we saw this beautiful moose in a bog. I believe here we have some in the center photo. We have some prints of maybe a mink or something like that. And one of my most favorite experiences that we had at the camp was seeing some bears, and we watched a family of bears with 2 cubs, and it was just so amazing to see them like run around the field and eating all the blueberries. In this slide, I took some group photos. We had 5 excellent leaders who led us around the park, were very knowledgeable about Algonquin Park. And so we had Alessandra Kite, Kai Jasper, Jeff Skevington, Angela Skevington, and Giz Segler as our as our group leaders. And even though Angela had to leave our group a bit early because of an injury, she still stayed with us for so many days after that. And she was just it was very kind of her to dedicate her time, even though she'd injured herself, but she still stayed with us for much of the time and made it such a more better experience. So it was really awesome to do that. And in all these photos, there's kind of one thing in common that we're doing, and that was watching warblers. So during our time at Algonquin Park, it had just happened so that the time that we were there, it had been a great time of the year that a lot of the fall warblers were on migration. So we encountered hundreds and hundreds of warblers, which I've never really seen at Algonquin Park before. So we would kind of stop along these roads and along some bridges here, and we'd kind of just do a little bit of fishing, and this constant stream of warblers would pass through, and it was a really awesome experience to see that. Here we are in Lake Travers now. This is toward the end of our trip, where we spent, I think, about 4 days on Lake Travers. And the days started very early, sometimes before dawn. And so here we are on the left picture with Jeff and Giz. We are in canoes. And so we're trying to get some marsh birds at sunrise. We had birds like American bittern, Sora, and Virginia rail, which are uncommon birds to find in the park. And we also experienced some very rainy and cold days, and days like that often brought shorebirds. So we'd go out to these mud flats and kind of sandbars where we'd find leaf sandpiper, semi-palmated sandpiper, and also like rarities. So our group had whimbrel and white rum sandpiper that are rare to come across in Algonquin Park. And not only was this camp, it was a great opportunity to learn about nature beyond birds. So I learned a whole bunch about dragonflies, insects, mammals, and everything else in between from our leaders, but also the participants who attended the camp. We had participants from all across Canada, and each one of them had something that they could offer and were very knowledgeable about. And our group felt very interested into dragonflies and darners. So I believe here in the top left is a dragon hunter, and then the other two, I'm not exactly sure what they are, but they were very, very cool to observe. And we saw hundreds of darners, and we saw a whole bunch of different species of them. So here we are now into these are photos from the wildlife research station that we stayed at for several days, and the water levels were surprisingly low on the lake. So it offered a place for migrating shorebirds to stop by. We had leaf sandpiper and semi-palmated and solitary sandpiper, and it was really cool to observe American black ducks. We had a family on the river, and there was butterflies, and we even had a pair of saw-whet owls that we observed during the night, and also barred owl. So I'm just trying to get the slideshow to load here. So here in the old airfield, it was a fantastic year for the blueberry crop. And you could just walk about anywhere in the airfield and stumble upon these bundles of blueberries. And we would often take breaks and snack on the blueberries. But we weren't the only ones snacking on the blueberries. There was birds like ring-billed gulls and ravens, and also Canada geese, who all took interest in the amazing crop of blueberries. That really much that ends my presentation, and hope you enjoyed it. And yeah, it was a fantastic experience to do this summer, and I hope I could maybe also be a leader sometime for the camp sometime in the future, which I would find really exciting to do.
Thank
So,
you, Marcus.
yeah, that's pretty much it. So you guys as leaders did a really excellent job.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
That was awesome. I love how the different perspectives from different people, right? You and Ben didn't coordinate, and yet you have very different perspectives, different photos, both awesome photos. Yeah, it's really, really fun to see what people get out of it and take out of the camp. So it's great. Before I do anything, do you guys, any of the people watching, have any questions for these two guys?
I would like you. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Landon.
When you go like canoeing, do you take like big cameras or smaller cameras or just binoculars?
I could answer that. Yeah, so in our group we had people with various experiences, levels of photography, and some were more into photography than others. But we had people with both small and large cameras, and some people without cameras. But yeah, all sorts of sizes of cameras we take along.
And we took dry bags, Landon, so that when it was raining, the cameras could be put in the dry bags, or if there's a risk of tipping, we'd put the cameras in. But people would sort of judge when to get them out and when it was safe, sort of thing. But the rain was the biggest thing, endangering cameras. So you had to keep them dry.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I don't have
Susan?
I don't have a question, but I just want to say thank you very much to Ben and Marcus for sharing your experiences and your photos. It was just fabulous. And I have to say to Jeff and Angela that, providing such a wonderful learning experience for young birders is just, it's so invaluable. And I hope you appreciate how much it means to the rest of us that you're encouraging the next generation to keep looking after the environment. And I also hope that Angela's shoulder is much better than it. Anyway, thanks to you all. It just looks so wonderful. And I can't imagine that you can tell us what was your favorite experience, because it must be pretty hard to name just one.
Thanks so much. Yeah, it's really my highlight of the year for sure doing this. It's just so exciting to have so many people with such different interests and passions, and everyone's super enthusiastic. I'll show some pictures if you want that maybe a little more human perspective, although it was really balanced what you guys did. So, all right, so if I turn this on, can you tell me if you can see the slides? Do I have to click on,
You have to click on share screen.
Share screen, yep. And desktop one, I guess. Share. How's that look?
Yeah, we can see.
There it is.
Okay, very good.
Is that a fly on the raven's head?
It sure is. And so I thought I'd start with this because this is kind of fun. So what everyone in the camp spotted, like everyone participating spotted something that others didn't see, which was really awesome. There are certainly some people like Marcus and Ben who are like a cut above and find more, but everybody spotted cool things. And I thought this was really cool. I'd put this talk together for last week with some of Griffin's photos in, because I didn't take many bird pictures. And so I put a few Griffin's photos in. And Griffin found the common eider in Peterborough, coincidentally, yesterday, which is one of the rarest birds in Ontario right now. And these guys and gals are all really talented. Marcus found a new bird for Ontario, hepatic tanager, a couple of years back. And so it's really, really fun working with everybody there. And I always learn a ton too. So I'm going to go through this fairly quickly and just give you some of my perspectives from it. So this is our first night where we saw the ravens at West Rose Lake, and everyone's taking pictures. These are fairly tame ravens that'll come and feed on blueberries and things that you toss to them. And it's a special experience to see ravens this close, because usually they're rather far away quite often. And so you see Ben here with some others all taking photos of the raven there. So that was a really, really nice start to the evening. And the one thing that they made very clear in their two talks is that it's billed as an OFO bird camp, but it's a nature camp, right? We look at everything. And so we started that night with some cool stuff. This was a louse fly, Hippobosidae, that is our parasite. They're parasitic on birds and mammals, but mostly the ones here are birds, also bats. Anyways, yeah, this was one that we found on that first hike, which I thought was pretty cool. Most people had never seen them. They're very flattened, so they can scuttle around amongst the feathers and duck in and not get caught by the birds when they're preening. So they usually spend their time around the nape, where it's hard for the birds to reach them and get them off. They're blood feeders. This is one of the plants we saw along the trail. We suspect one of the naturalists has planted these there. It's American chestnut, which is almost extinct in the wild, but used to be one of the common parts of the forest in Eastern North America. And of course, the first night was the night that Angela managed to fall and break her shoulder. And so I was coming back in the dark. She tripped and fell, and it was excruciating. And so we went to the hospital. We took everyone back and to the camp first, and then she and I went off to the hospital for the night. And it was very funny because I did an eBird list while I was laying on my back listening to migrants waiting for Angela. And one of the parents sent a note to their son saying, "Is everyone okay? I saw an eBird list from the hospital in the middle of the night." Anyways, so Angela amazingly, stoically stayed with the camp the rest of the week, except for the canoeing trip. We felt it probably wasn't safe to be paddling with one arm in the canoe if she had a disaster and ended up in the water. So anyways, and you saw lots of pictures of the airfield from the guys that showed them. And this is people picking blueberries and wandering around the airfield looking at birds and stuff. So it's really a unique place in the park, because the park's mostly forest, and you've got this area that was once an airfield that they've now burned to keep it clear. And it makes for a very unique and different birding place. And this is where we saw the bears as well. Well, we saw other bears too, but this is where we saw some of our bears. It was a really, really good year for bears. And we saw more bears, I think, than I've ever seen in the park this summer. And you can see here, a couple of the guys are photographing the bears way down the path. You can see them there. There's a mom with the two cubs just crossing. So it was kind of fun, you know, how there was another photographer there that wasn't part of our group, and you could see she was chomping at the bit to get closer to the bear. But it was good. She learned by watching us. We just sat back and sat down and watched, and the bears fed on, you know, naturally, and then wandered across the path. Whereas if she charged in to take photos, they would have ran back in the forest, and that would have been that. So it's good. It's fun, you know, sort of seeing people learning from how you're behaving and your experiences. So, and you saw this picture. This is Griffin's, but similar picture from the other guys. This was one of my exciting animals for the camp. Honestly, don't remember who found this. Was it you, Marcus? Anyways, this was a shrew in the middle of the airfield that it was dead on the path. And we think that it's gray long-tailed shrew. It might be a water shrew, but it was so far from the water, seems unlikely. But the specimen's going to go to the Royal Ontario Museum, and they'll tell us for sure what it is. But if it's gray long-tailed shrew, it's new for Canada. But kind of expected there because it's an Appalachian species that has the same distribution as eastern wolf and red spruce. So there's a few things that occur in Algonquin that are down into the Appalachians, and that's another one. You heard from Ben, I think, about the small mammal trapping, and this is the group listening to the researcher talking about the small mammal program. So you can see it more from the people perspective here as we're all learning about it and watching him show us this is that woodland jumping mouse that you already have seen. So very, very cool to see. We always do some dragonfly watching, and this year was no different. And we had some pretty good weather for a couple of different places where we're looking at dragonflies. Here's Giz, I think, is in the water. And most of us were in the water at some point during this outing, collecting and not collecting, but catching and looking at dragonflies. And this is at Lake Opeongo. We went for a special outing one night to look for shadow dragons, which we managed to see flying along the docks. They have like a mating site here along the docks, and it's a very localized and rare dragonfly. So it's very exciting. So I think this is what I really love about the camp, is that everybody's into everything, and we're just, it doesn't matter, plants, fungi, whatever, everybody's looking at it. This was the spruce grouse experience. Everyone's stoked and looking at the spruce grouse along the Spruce Bog Boardwalk here. And we didn't just have those 5 guides that were mentioned. Yes, those were the 5 principal guides that everyone had from day to day. But we were so lucky. Marcus mentioned that we had some of the park naturalists like Quentin and Alexander came out with us as well. This is Drake Evans in the middle here, came with us one day on Spruce Bog. He's the manager of the research station. And so we had all kinds of people that were super knowledgeable about the park around us and teaching us. Lots of people really into snakes. This is Desmond with a garter snake. And this was a red-bellied snake on the right and a ringneck snake on the left. So Algonquin is not renowned for herp diversity. There's not a huge number of frogs and snakes, but we saw almost all of the frogs and snakes and turtles during our visit to the park. So that was pretty exciting. Another naturalist that joined us in the shorts is Sarah Lamond, and she came out with us one day. I'm trying to think what we saw on this side. Oh, I think this was the day we had the snakes. But also we found a new park plant with Quentin was with us this day, and he found a new plant for the park this day too. So very exciting. The park's really, really well known for its flora and fauna. So finding a new park plant is really exceptional. So that was great. And you can see Alessandra is there as well. And there's Kaya in this one. And Giz with the orange jacket. So lots and lots of expertise, and of course, many of the campers have a lot of expertise as well, and we're sharing that. So I didn't show pictures. We also did some mothing, not a lot this year, but some years we do more, and we did have some pretty cool moths a couple nights that we ran the light trap. This is Lake Travers that we did our camping trip on, and this is the side of Lake Travers that you didn't see. It was very rainy for much of the time there, and as was mentioned, only birders would be excited by this weather. It was fantastic weather for downing birds on the lake, and we had really, really good birding as a result. But it was very wet and hard to keep dry and warm, but we did our best. This was a little camp that we made that they dubbed Camp Phalarope, Fort Phalarope, actually, even though we never did see a phalarope there. But about a week later, Sarah Lamond was there and saw a redneck phalarope from this spot. So it was aptly named Fort Phalarope. So some people watched from shore, some went out in canoes, and Kaya did some of the cooking there, and everyone was happy despite the weather, which was just fantastic. And Griffin, in its bare feet, soaked to the skin, but still having a great time. So lots of fun. And you see the girls here, look, they're maybe not quite as excited by the rain, but still having a good time, trying to stay warm by the fire there. And you can see it's raining lightly as we're in these photos. But anyways, I love Lake Traver. It's my favorite lake in the park. And it's a close-up shot Griffin took of a semi-palmated sandpiper, which is a rare bird in the park. And was exciting to see. It wouldn't have stopped. If it wasn't raining, it wouldn't have been there. So that was great. This little pond was classic. You know, everybody just jumped in and was mucking about trying to find this bullfrog. And they managed to catch it. Look at the size of this bullfrog. That was amazing. That was good fun. And then Des came up with this stinky catfish that was dead, probably dead for a week, that he found. Brought it up to the camp. Anyways, that was fun. So one of the things that everyone's keen to do usually is put data on iNaturalist. So a lot of this stuff was photographed and put on iNaturalist. You already heard the story about the ocellated darner that Ben caught. That was a new dragonfly for me. I'd never seen it before. So that was very, very exciting for me. And that's the other one, fawn darner, which is very, very common, very similar, as you can tell, but little bit different color of brown and much more common and not as local and restrictive. Another new dragonfly at the same place was least clubtail. I'd never seen that either. So lots of cool stuff. And Desmond was really keen to see some orchids, and he knew that there was orchid twayblade in the area. So we asked Quentin where it was. He told us roughly where it was, and it took us some effort, but sure, lo and behold, with all the eyes looking, I forget who spotted it. It might have been Desmond, I think, spotted it. Very, very tiny little orchid that was not flowering at the time. It was finished, but was exciting. That was a lifer for, I think, everybody on the group. So that was fun. And a new Earth star that I'd never seen before, tiny little Earth star, was new for the park as well. So another new exciting. This was near Lake Traver. So lots of cool stuff. Cardinal flower is really, really common on Lake Traver on the east side, but it's not found at all along Highway 60 where most people go in the park. It's beautiful all along the lake. And we saw some white ones, which is cool. These are kind of like albinos. They're sort of white morphs of the cardinal flower. We added to our snake list there. We saw water snake, and of course everyone had lots of fun playing around with the dragonfly. So that's Ben with the dragonfly. But anyways, hopefully that gives you a bit of a little different perspective, more of a people perspective. And let's see, how do I stop this thing from sharing the pictures now? Oh, there it is. Hang on. Share. How do you turn the share off? Oh, stop share. There it is. There we go. All right. Any more questions, you folks?
I have another question.
Sure.
When exactly is the camp?
So that's what we're going to determine very soon. I've written to the Wildlife Research Station to make sure they're available when we want. Right now, we're targeting a week in late August, but if that's not available, we'll have to negotiate something else. So the thing is, there's lots of different groups using the Wildlife Research Station. We have to fit in with everybody else. So we've spoken for the dates, but it's not confirmed yet. So we should know within 2 or 3 weeks, and then we will post it on the OFO website, and we'll probably send out an email at some point in February saying when it is. So right now we're targeting late August, just a little bit different, a little bit later. See if we can get some more migrants, and if that doesn't work out, we'll find some other time in the summer. But that's what we're targeting right now.
Can I ask one last? Oh, Susan, you have a question.
Oh, I do, but it's maybe not your favorite memory. I was wondering about the biting insects and wondered and how you coped with them. And I also wondered if deer ticks or other kinds of ticks are an issue in the park.
So Algonquin Park it's on a dome. So it's a couple hundred meters above the surrounding land. And so that's why it has northern birds and things like Canada jays and spruce grouse, but that also keeps some of the nasties out. So there's no deer ticks established yet. There's a couple records, but they're both probably off of pets and not established. So no Lyme disease in the park yet, which is huge because unlike everywhere else in Southern Ontario, it means that we can lay on the ground and not think about it, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
Now that probably won't continue forever, but for now that's the case. Biting flies are often horrific in early summer, like they peak in May, the black flies, and then mosquitoes peak in June. And when we have the camp in early July, it's a challenge for some people. We certainly make people well aware that the bugs are going to be bad, and sometimes they can continue. Like if it's a wet year, they can be really bad right through the summer. So we had a few spots this year where they were bad, but we had a few spots where they were non-existent. So it varied. It was pretty light this year compared to some. And the later we hold it, so if it's in later August, there's fewer biting flies, but there's also fewer cool flies as well. So the peak for the peak for insects is June. And so if you want to go and see insects, June's the time. So by August, it's dipping down, but things have really changed. We used to, when I worked in the park in the 1980s as a naturalist, we had frosts in September and even sometimes in August. Now our first frosts are October. So it's really pronounced the climate change differences in the park because of this elevational difference. It used to be a very, very early freeze, and you'd have sensitive ferns all dead by the end of August, sort of thing. So now, as a result, the insects keep going for longer, and so both the biting flies go longer, but also the cool insects go longer too. So, it's pros and cons. No venomous snakes. Like it's a fantastic place. The only things that'll eat you are bears and wolves, and they don't partake in people very often. Wolves never. It's incredible. A big predator like that can take down moose don't eat people, period. They just don't. And bears very, very rarely. And almost all the bear attacks in North America have been black bear attacks I'm talking about have been in June, early June. Big males post hibernation when they're feeding on moose calves and deer fawns. It's the only time of the year they eat mammals. So later in the year, they're eating bugs, a lot of insects in their diet, a lot of plants in their diet. Bears are really almost zero threat as well that time of year. So it's a wonderful place with no Lyme disease, not too many diseases from insects. It's great.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if Ben and Marcus and Jeff, before we finish for the night, if you could just maybe share if you had to give somebody one piece of advice that was thinking of coming to camp next summer, what would you like them to know?
You go, Ben.
Well, I mean, one piece of advice. I think for me it would be probably that when you're coming to camp, you might not know anybody in the first couple hours, but by the end of the week, you're all going to be a tight group, and you're going to know everyone, and it's gonna be a great experience. And the other thing I'd say is just make sure you're prepared when you come. So just make sure you have what you need, and be prepared to have fun.
Do they, I know the answer to this, but you answer it. Do they send you a list of what kinds of clothing and equipment you should bring?
Yeah, you get a packing list.
Yeah.
So
Marcus?
I kind of feel that even this camp is a place to improve your skills of all sorts. So even though you may not feel that you're the best at like identifying birds and insects, plants, but you're there to learn from other people and have a good time. And one thing I'd just like to add is that during our camp, we had excellent food prepared by we had I think maybe 2 chefs at the Wildlife Research Station, and from talking with people in the past who have attended this camp, the food that we had last year was exceptionally good. So I hope you're looking forward to that, like the excellent meals as well.
Yeah, Farkad was the cook the last 2 summers, and she's amazing. So hopefully she'll be back again. She's turning into a birder, so I think she's drawn back to Algonquin. So she'll hopefully be back. My single piece of advice for would-be campers is arrive rested. The pace is I set a pretty high bar and pretty fast pace. We try to have an hour or two every day of free time if we can. We try to make sure that people have that, and you can do your own thing in that time. And the campers, everybody goes off in little groups or in big groups and does their own thing and without guides. And during that time, if you need to sleep, sleep. Because everybody has a different sort of battery size, and we go pretty hard. Usually, we're up well before first light to eat, and then we're out at first light, and then often we'll go out wolfowling or something at dark too, after dark. So the days are long. One of the big advantages that I find personally leading the camp, doing it in August, is the days are shorter. When we do the camp in early July, it is exhausting for most of the campers. I don't get tired very easily, and so I don't tend to notice when people are dragging their heels, but those days in early July are very, very long. So later in August, the days are shorter, and we can pack more into the shoulder times when the birds are more active, and it's not quite as tiring. But arrive rested is a big thing, and know your body, and take a break and rest if you need to.
That's good advice. It reminds me of atlasing in June, and getting up at 4 to do point counts and yeah. Well, thank you, all of you, all three of you. I look forward to this presentation. It was so fun to see the pictures and hear the stories, and it's so encouraging that we have lots of new, young, upcoming naturalists. I won't even say birders here. I'll say naturalists, whether you're gonna be professional naturalists or citizen scientists, whatever it is. I think it's fantastic. And it's after 8 o'clock, so unless anyone else has further questions or comments, maybe we'll call it a night.
I don't have any more questions, but I just wanted to say thank you to everybody for being so informative.
Thanks, Landon.
Yeah, I second that emotion, and thanks to Angie for organizing so many good meetings.
Oh, thank you. This one was a little bit got off the rails last week, but we're okay. So
I'm sure we'll get lots of views online. So thanks to both you guys for hanging out and doing this.
It will. And next month, the first Wednesday, February 5th, I noticed in the OFO News there seems to be a lot. The October OFO News arrived this week. Postal strike. And there seems to be a lot about citizen science and data collection, atlasing, and all that sort of stuff. And our meeting in February is going to kind of tap into that, because we have Dr. Teresa Phillips coming, and she's sort of a beginner birder, but that's not really her thing. But she is a scientist who works in the industry helping with people who are developing land by I'll let her explain it, but she's using Atlas data and eBird data in her work all the time. So I kind of invited her to share how our contributions are getting actually used out there outside of science. So maybe we'll see you there. Have a lovely evening. Happy birding. Thanks for coming out. Good night.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.